Packer fans are excited about the 2025 draft class, but some of these players aren't because this class just put them on notice.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And this show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. There's always a reverberation of a draft class through a team because players are not stupid. When the Packers draft 2 receivers in the top 100, everyone in that room, especially after Josh Jacobs went on a walking tour of the nation's media talking about how they needed an upgrade at receiver, they know what's being said. They know the discussion, the narrative, and it is apparently not just a media-driven, or in this case, a Josh Jacobs-driven narrative. This is something clearly the team sees as well. But let's hold off on the receiver bit for a moment because that one's easy. That one's obvious. I want to start in a place that to me is a little less obvious. And the player who I think is most on notice. And part of this is those receivers were on notice already. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs going into the last years of their career. There's already pressure on them to perform. The most pressure to me that this draft class put on a player is on Lukas Van Ness. Because what the Packers said was, we don't need a difference maker with the pass rush because we have invested in players we believe in. And you hope, from a process standpoint, that it was the rest of the sentence that I finished, not just we invested a lot in players. Because then you're dealing with a sunk cost fallacy problem, and you hope that the Packers would not engage with that. That, oh, well, you spent a first-round pick on Lukas Van Ness, you paid Rashawn Gary, you paid Kenny Clark. You actually can't countenance spending more resources in that area. You just have to make sure those guys are in the best position to succeed. I'm not saying that there's none of that in this decision. But regardless of why this decision was made, the Packers are going to need more from this front. Whether that is from Kenny Clark being healthy, whether that is Devontae Wyatt being healthy and staying healthy, being able to be someone who plays on early downs. But we know what we're going to get from Rashawn Gary in all likelihood if he stays healthy. We know more or less what we're going to get from Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Kingsley Enagbare, Brenton Cox even. What the Packers are expecting from Kingsley Enagbare is a material step forward to where, you don't have to become Nick Bosa. You don't have to become Myles Garrett. But you need to be someone who is the clear-cut starter at the position. Because if that isn't the case, like if Lukas Van Ness goes into a camp battle with Kingsley Enagbare and Barron Sorrell and doesn't win it, Kingsley Enagbare is going into the last year of his deal. The Packers, they don't know what they're going to get from Sorrell. They may need to make a trade if they go into week 1 and there's not a guy in Lukas Van Ness who has taken a big jump forward. Someone who can be the starter. You just go, nope, there it is. That's him. It needs to be obvious. You know it when you see it. That kind of obvious. That's a lot of pressure because he's never been that. As a rookie, the understanding was this is going to take some time. And in year 2, new scheme, plenty of guys out there. Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary. You still expect a lot from Kenny Clark and those interior guys coming off their rookie seasons in 2023. There was a lot to be excited about. The pressure was not on, specifically anyway, Lukas Van Ness, to do anything, to reach any specific sort of bar for the team to have success. Certainly fans wanted him to play well. That seems obvious. But it was not all on him to be successful. Now, it's not going to be all on him for this defense to be successful in 2025, but it will be more on him. And Kingsley Enagbare is going into the last year of his deal. And so there's a lot riding on the success of Lukas Van Ness this season, because if they have to go into next offseason with pass rusher as a priority, it's going to have to be another first round pick on defense. Now, maybe they've insulated themselves against that eventuality where you're saying, okay, well, you added to the offensive line, you added 2 receivers so that if next year you go into the offseason and Lukas Van Ness has not performed, you have the wiggle room that you're not going, well, you got to have receiver 2. And man, it would really be nice to have some more depth on this offensive line. No, you've made that investment and you're going to give it a chance to see it through. The pass rush, though, is a priority, a premium. And so there's a lot riding on Lukas Van Ness being that guy. And in fact, when we talked yesterday about the 2024 draft class and how they can help this team reach their ceiling, where if Edgerrin Cooper takes a little bit of a step forward and Evan Williams takes a little bit of the step forward and Javon Bullard takes a little bit of a step forward, they can elevate this team to an elite level, a top 5, top 3 level, because Edgerrin Cooper has superstar potential. Xavier McKinney is already a superstar. And then you've got, the red chip players, the Rashawn Garys. You've got Kenny Clark, who's been a red chip player. Can he get back to being that? There's just really no holes. And then if you're getting, big time production out of those guys, that's enough to be an elite defense week in and week out. The additional piece of that is if you get a step from Lukas Van Ness and maybe more, like if you get incremental progress from Edgerrin Cooper, marginal even progress from Evan Williams, and then the real material step from Lukas Van Ness, where he's a guy, not a superstar, but a guy, like the Nolan Smith late season last year jump, where there are games or there are drives where you just go, okay, that drive ended because of Lukas Van Ness. Or a game where he has 2 sacks and 5 pressures that materially impact the outcome of the game. Even if it's not, a 15 sack season, it doesn't have to be that, but you feel his presence more often than not. Sort of the 2019 Preston Smith. I think he probably had 10 sacks that year, but he was really doing a lot of feeding off of what everyone else was doing. He was maximizing his one-on-one opportunities, which he got regularly because Zadarius Smith was so freaking good. And you felt him. He ended that Seahawks game in the playoffs. So if you're getting that from Lukas Van Ness, wasn't a Pro Bowl player, but like maybe kind of a borderline kind of guy where you're just like, yeah, that's a good player. He's a good player now. You'd like to have that player more than not. That could elevate this team as well into elite level defense. Do they need that to play really good defense? No, but from a pressure standpoint, this guy has everything riding on this season. Because if it doesn't happen this season, it's over. It's just over for him as a guy. Like the Packers just don't have, with this group of guys, they don't have the time to wait for year 4, year 5. They don't have the time. And they don't have, frankly, the resources to pick up a 5th-year option on a player like that. It's just going to be over. They're going to move on. They're going to take a pass rusher in the first round of next year's draft. They're going to hope that Barron Sorrell and Colin Oliver can take some snaps here and that Brenton Cox can take a step and that, you don't miss Kingsley Enagbare and that Rashawn Gary just keeps going. Is any of that crazy? No, but they're counting on Lukas Van Ness to be a dude. And if he's not, I do think we're going to look back at this and go, hey, Savion Williams, like I love the potential there. What a really fun player. Matt LaFleur is going to have a blast with that guy. Could they have used that pick on a pass rusher? Could they have used the Anthony Belton pick on a pass rusher? Because it didn't really work out great with Lukas Van Ness. We're going to second guess this draft if Lukas Van Ness doesn't take that step forward, which means not only is there pressure on LVN, but there's real pressure on the organization to get this right. All right, but there's more. It's more than just Lukas Van Ness. We'll talk about who that might be next on Locked On Packers. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off. And live, with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Plus, you can take live prop bets, let's say, in the middle of the game and ramp up the action that you're getting because you're getting a bigger payout. How about a $200 bonus in bets? Add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits. Would that be something I could interest you in? New to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We know the receiver piece of this and the offensive line piece of this. We've talked about it a lot. Romeo Doubs, free agent. Christian Watson, free agent. Jayden Reed, has he earned that second contract, that Randall Cobb level, whatever the version of that deal is? Now remember, when the Packers extended Randall Cobb, they had Jordy Nelson in his prime. They had Devontae Adams waiting in the wings. Can you afford Jayden Reed in a year? Because he's going to want to get paid before that last year of his deal. Dontavian Wicks, what does that look like? Jordan Morgan, can he step in for Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, Anthony Belton, all breathing down their necks? So we know the straightforward, obvious stuff. The one-for-one, hey, I was drafted to see if I can come take your job. But that's also part of the deal. That's part of being in the NFL. And how the Packers navigate that is going to be essential to their winning and losing this season. So they've now put a lot of pressure on this coaching staff, particularly on offense. And that's Matt LaFleur. That's Adam Stenavich. That's Luke Getsy. That's Jason Vrabel. That's Ryan Hafey. That's all these guys. Luke Butkus on the offensive line. You have to be able to find a way to make this cohesive, to be competitive without being combative. And a little competitive tension, nothing wrong with that. But remember, this is a team that last year had to suspend Romeo Doubs because of a blow up with coaches where he was frustrated about his targets. Now, it seemed like that was water under the bridge. The players seemed to support him and they were still really supportive of him on the field. But you don't draft Matthew Golden and Savion Williams if you think all of these guys are going to be long-term pieces of your team. They're not. Now, Dontavian Wicks, I think, has proven he can kind of wait in the wings. He led the team in targets last year. Didn't feel like it, at least not to me. I think Jayden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, they are the kinds of guy, and we thought Romeo Doubs was the kind of guy that's just going to be about the team. But these are still receivers we're talking about here. This is, the enemy walks quiet and holds a knife or whatever the tweet is. And even if they're all great guys, there's going to be some tension to navigate here. And it's not just about the tension piece. It's not just about the culture piece. The on-field part is just as difficult to navigate. Who's getting the snaps? How do you find? And we talked about this last year. It was frustrating at times when it felt like no one was given the opportunity to get in rhythm because you're constantly rotating players in and out. And there were times when I felt like Matt LaFleur was a little too obvious. Hey, you bring in Bo Melton and Malik Heath on first down. I wonder what they're going to do. Run the ball, duh. Now, if you have more options, you can be less predictable, but it is harder for any one player to get in a flow to go, hey, I understand the way this corner is going to play me. And so in the second, in the third, in the fourth quarters, after I've had a bunch of reps, now I have a better idea of how to attack not just this corner, this coverage, this defense, this weather condition. And if you're not giving anyone the opportunity to get in that rhythm, you are hurting your team. So the coaches are going to have to ride that balance. And I think we are looking at a team where maybe a name that we're familiar with just isn't on the team by the time that we get to training camp, or during training camp winds up somewhere else. I would not be surprised at all. And as soon as the draft happened, our pal Louis DiBiase over in Philadelphia was like, hey, I wonder, could you pry Romeo Doubs away from the Packers? Could you call about Dontavian Wicks? And there are teams out there that could still use receivers. And so if the Packers' plan is to move on from Romeo Doubs and you feel good about Matthew Golden and he looks good in camp, maybe you do just say, hey, look, even though Bo Melton is not a long-term part of this team, and even though Malik Heath is not a primetime player, we feel good enough about them if we have injuries that we can move on from someone like Romeo Doubs. Christian Watson's coming sooner than later. You've got Golden, you've got Williams, you've got Wicks, you've got Reed. That's enough. Plus Melton and Heath and Mecole Hardman, if we really want to go that deep on it. But the Packers are going to have to they're going to have to ride this line on who's playing, for what are we trying to accomplish, who is playing well, who is the best to play this week, and can that work week to week? Can you be as egalitarian as they've been? Do you need to make a change? Do you need to fundamentally alter the way that, not that you structure the offense necessarily, but the philosophy that undergirds it, where you're like, hey, maybe this offense needs more guys that you're just going to funnel targets through, not because they're elite players, but that just because it benefits the offense to do that they will actually play better if it's just a volume thing. I think this offense is at its best when it is designed to death. When it is more Matt LaFleur, less Mike McCarthy, where it's not just like, hey, it's 3rd and 8, go win one-on-one. And there are times when they do that. The best versions of this offense to me are whether it's Jordan Love canning from one play to another, finding the best matchup, whether it is Jordan Love setting the protection and changing the play, whatever it is winning with play design, because they just don't have the horses right now to win with just individual awesomeness. Maybe there is an admission in the drafting of someone like Savion Williams that, hey, maybe you need some players who can just go make you right as a coach. Devontae Adams was that kind of guy. Aaron Rodgers was that kind of guy. But Aaron Rodgers played his best within a Matt LaFleur scheme. So what can you combine there to make work? That's why I like Savion Williams so much for this Packers team, because they need a guy to just say, we can just throw you a bubble screen. We can just throw you a couple crossing routes. We can just run an end around. And every game, we're going to try and design 5 touches for you because we think you can do something where we don't have to block it up perfectly. You can just go make a play. And I think Jaden Reed is like that. And they need guys like that. And what they need is more guys. And this, I've made this point over and over on Christian Watson. As a man coverage player, it wasn't like he was great because he's just route guiding guys up. It's Matt LaFleur cleared out one side, brought Christian Watson over from the other side, and he's running to grass, running to open space. They can do that with guys like Matthew Golden, guys like Savion Williams. But this is going to be a lot of having to rely on the coaching staff to pull the right levers at the right times to make the right adjustments in the game, to coach them, not just on the details and the player development side, but on the scheme side, on the philosophy side. That's a lot of pressure on this coaching staff. Okay, let's talk about one more group now on notice by this NFL draft class. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. What would it mean to eliminate the I didn't know excuse from your family's routine? I know it would help me personally. In fact, I swear to you, this is true. I just saw on social media an ad for the Skylight Calendar because we have the frames. And I sent it to my wife and I said, do we need this? As a way of saying, I think we need this. Because I am the one that's always going, well, what does the calendar look like? I'm not at home. We have a calendar, but it's a whiteboard calendar. Can't access it when I'm not at home. It's really nice to be able to have it always there for you and to make changes in real time when you're not at home. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. In the vein of Lukas Van Ness, where we started our show, there is an enormous amount of pressure on this cornerback room right now. On Keyshawn Nixon, on Nate Hobbs, on Javon Bullard, on Carrington Valentine, because they did not meaningfully add to that room. And Brian Gutekunst has insisted they were not going to feel the pressure of the outside world on this. They have liked this group much longer than we have. And from the outside, we're going, Keyshawn Nixon? He's going to play outside? And it turns out he was pretty good. And I will gladly take the L on that one. I was very dubious. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that worked. And I think he's better, frankly, outside than he is in the slot. Just a better fit for his body type, for his movement skills. And I think if they're able to play more cover three, I think, and vision and break the true, 3 deep, 4 under, I think that will benefit him even more. They had to play a lot of cover two. That's not really where he's, at his best. But the front office has said, we believe in these guys. And there were certainly times last year where we were watching going, why? Why exactly? But by the end of the year, look, they were more than good enough. And there are certainly games where, you're going to get Justin Jefferson or you're going to get even Jordan Addison. Like, the touchdown against Javon Bullard is just a gorgeous route. It's one-on-one in space. It's nearly impossible for Javon Bullard to make a play there. And it's a perfect throw. And so you're just like, that stuff's going to happen. But there were a lot of people who thought first round corner. We had Keith Sanchez from Locked On NFL Draft come on our show and say, I think they need to use a first round pick on a corner. And if it's not a first round pick, it should be a second or a third round pick, preferably as high as possible, please. That did not happen. So that means the expectation for the level of play has to be high because you're talking about opportunity cost. What could you have done with a player in Anthony Belton who's probably not going to play right away? What could you have done with a Savion Williams who's a player who's certainly not going to start right away in all likelihood? I know I just undercut what I said, but chances of him starting week 1 are low. Chances of a 3rd round corner coming in and starting for this team in particular, it was certainly within the realm of possibility. I think you could see the shape of, hey, a corner comes in, plays well enough that you go, actually, that guy makes more sense than taking Nate Hobbs and leaving him outside. Actually, if you put him on the slot on 3rd down or a nickel, then this guy is good enough to play outside right now. And now you have your best 3 on the field in terms of your corners. That is not unreasonable to have foreseen. They didn't do that. And Micah Robinson is not going to be that guy. Look, anything can happen, right? Anything can happen, but probably an 185 corner from Tulane is probably not going to come in and push for a starting job. Certainly not over, a 2-year starter at Georgia who just started every game as a rookie that he was healthy for. That was a no-doubt starter from the time he was in the spring. Showing up in Green Bay, he was the starter. I find that hard to believe. So that means there's pressure on Javon Bullard to perform. There's pressure on Keyshawn Nixon to perform. There's pressure on Nate Hobbs as an incoming free agent to perform. Because the Packers had opportunities to invest even more into those positions, and they didn't. Now, that means there's also pressure to have some sort of resolution with this Jair Alexander thing that benefits the Packers. Because I don't think you can make an addition by subtraction argument with Jair Alexander. Not having Jair Alexander is worse in every way than having him, except the cap ramifications. But the Packers don't need the money. It'll save them some money, but who cares? It's not your money. And yeah, you can roll some of that cap over, and they might need some of that money, but it's not a material difference right now. Though post June 1, that helps a little. This Packers organization has to find either a trade partner for Jair Alexander or he has to be back. Because you didn't invest elsewhere. So they got to figure that part out. What that resolution looks like, I don't know. What is most likely, I can't say. And look, I've been wrong about the Jair Alexander situation before. Now, I was not wrong when I was saying this is weird. It was weird. It was weird then. It's still weird now what happened. It was the case that even the team was like, so is he gonna play? He practiced all week. Is he gonna play? It'd be really nice to know if he was gonna play, because then if we know he's not gonna play, then at least we can make the proper adjustments here if we need to. But they didn't. And it was weird. And Matt LaFleur was clearly perturbed about it. And now it's weird that Jair Alexander is participating in the offseason work that I don't think he's getting paid for, but then not the stuff that he would get paid for. But that makes sense too. It's all very bizarre. I am more open to them finding some common ground here than I was, but we'll see. And I know I said I wasn't going to make this about Jair Alexander every week, and I'm not, but this is part of the theme that we're on, so we have to at least touch on it. There is pressure on the organization to find a resolution here, and a resolution that benefits the team. We'll see if they can get that done. All right, back tomorrow. Much more here to come on Locked On Packers all off season. We're still here 5 days a week in May. That may change in June. It will change for parts of June for sure. We'll see about July. It will change for parts of July, I believe. But as of right now, as of May, we're still 5 days a week. So be sure to stick with us here. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, wherever you find those sorts of things, whatever you like. We're there probably. And wherever you find podcasts, go subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. It does help. It helps other people find us. And go subscribe over on our YouTube page so you can stay Locked On Packers.